Hi, Caroline Kearney here at Powell Arts, standing in front of the beautiful piece by Linda Weaver, which will be in our Papers Work show that starts June 2nd. Linda, can you introduce us to your piece?
This piece is a piece of quilled artwork called Something Springy.
So I think quilling, like even for me, like I've seen quilling before, but I've never seen, this is very elaborate. It's very elaborate, and you're combining so many different colors and textures. Can you tell us a little bit? I think quilling is going to be something kind of new for a lot of our audience. Can you tell us just like a little bit about it?
Quilling is actually an ancient art that was very prevalent in Europe, where the nuns would quill intricate boxes to keep their jewels in and that kind of thing. And quilling is done with different widths of paper. This piece in particular is done with paper that's 1/8 of an inch wide. And the most narrow pieces that you can do quilling in is 1/16 of an inch.
It's really tiny.
And then they go up in increments of 1/16 of an inch up to 5/8 of an inch, which gives a much more in-depth type picture.
So one of the things I find absolutely fascinating is that you've used these in a multitude of directions, and you're both spinning them into corkscrews that are linear and then building them out dimensionally so that we can see the petals of the flowers, and you're building the patterns here, but you're also bringing the leaves out. How do you figure the composition out? How do you make these shapes? When you're thinking of this, how do you approach a piece like this?
Well, first I try to pick a color that I think that I might want to work with, and I take it from there and see where it goes, really. The pieces are done with, it used to be done on a quilling, it's done on a quilling tool. Some people still use needles to twirl, but there's an actual tool that you use with a slot on it that you twirl, and you can make the different shapes and put them together, and it comes into a design.
Yeah, what I find so interesting is some, like, the petals that come out three-dimensionally from this are so interesting to me, because you have to have such a nice control to create a gentle slope and then a really tight, so that they'll curl in on themselves and create like that beautiful petal look, which I would imagine takes a lot of control on the pen, because it's so different, or the tool that you use, because it's so different than these little corkscrews, which are kind of a consistency.
Yes.
So you would think consistent pressure when you're making them, whereas this has to be very controlled, I would assume.
It is.
Yeah. Well, I love too that the flowers in their centers, you do to a point where they almost look like beads. And when I first approached this, I'm thinking, oh, this is made out of beads and maybe some kind of sewing. And then you look at it and it's like, no, it's not. It's made out of strands that are meticulously strung together.
Yeah. It's funny, like I think that's such a great point, because the thing is when you look at it, it's beautiful, and you look at it and you say, this is really pretty, but then you look at it, it's meticulously controlled.
Yeah.
Like, it takes a lot of control. This isn't just something that you're like, oh, it's not like curling ribbon. Like,
No, so the strips of paper, depending on what type of design you want to do, in this particular piece, there's different shapes that are made from the strips of paper. For instance, the green pieces are all considered loose coils.
Mm-hmm.
So once the paper is rolled on your tool, then you would just pull it off the tool and release it, and it will release and make the coil look.
And earlier you were talking about like how you adhere them, and I'm assuming that, like, do you create the shapes first and then adhere them? Like,
yes.
How do you? So you do all the shapes and then you assemble it, or do you create a shape, put it in? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes. Well, yes, I do.
Sorry.
I make if I want to make this flower, for instance, I know I need 5 or 6 petals to make the flower. So I'll make that flower and each of the petals on the flower, and then I glue them together. And then I made the center of it, which is probably really hard to see, but that's a tight coil, so that you do not release. It remains tight, and then you have to immediately glue the end so it remains tight so that you can use it as the center.
I could never do that. Like my mom,
I'd have glue all over my fingers.
when I was in like kindergarten, we had to do one of those candy canes with the beads with the lace. And I could just not hold it long enough. And so I would have released this immediately. It would have been a disaster. Like the amount of like control and like patience that this
the workmanship is it's impeccable.
So you assemble, I'm guessing, the larger, like if I'm understanding you correctly, the larger components of it and glue them, and then you put it all together in the
yes.
That's terrific.
I have a question.
Okay.
So we've been talking to a lot of artists about our hoarding tendencies or our way of collecting, and I'm sitting here looking at this, and you talked about how you made it, and I thought, so when I go in her studio, does she have like little quill things all around and little pieces of flower all around and little shapes all around sprinkled throughout that it's like, oh, now I'm going to put them together?
Yes, to an extent, that's true. So I'll start with thinking I have a design in my head, and I start with the project, and it doesn't go the way I think it goes, and then I put it aside. So I have this table, huge table filled with started things, and then at some point I make another type of an element, and it all comes together, and then I grab this element, and I grab that element, and I put them together and create the piece.
I think that's so interesting how you can create something and know it's going to be useful, but you're like, not yet. It's work for this.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're like, the thing in a creative brain that goes, oh, I have just the thing, is absolutely fascinating. And I said yesterday that it's the only difference between every artist I know says, well, I collect stuff. And I'm like, the creative impulse is what keeps you from being a hoarder, because if you had no creativity, you would just be like, I just keep stuff. But because you're going to use it at something, artists are creative.
Yeah.
But I think that's so funny, like walking into an artist space and like seeing like all the little pieces that are going on.
I like imagining what an artist space looks like by how they describe their process.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I have to commend you. This is called something springy.
Yes.
Of course, it is something springy.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
I love the play on words.
I love the play on words too.
And this is actually a piece that's a part of a series.
Oh, yes.
I did the mums in spring colors. I did them again in summer colors and fall colors and winter colors. So there's a series that goes with this. Each of the designs are a little bit different, but the core of the design is the mums.
So
just in different colors.
Can you tell us the colors for each series? We can see spring with its pinks and
the summers is brilliant red, bright yellow, orange. The falls is golden tones with like wheat color, that kind of thing. And winter I did in like a baby blue and white.
How did you start doing this?
Quilling?
Yeah.
Actually, I learned how to do quilling snowflakes in second grade art.
Oh, so this goes way back.
Yes. And we learned how to quill on the end of a paintbrush.
Oh.
And we use thicker, wider pieces of paper because when you're in second grade, your dexterity is not quite as good. But we made these snowflakes, and I took them home, and I hung them on our tree, and my mother loved them. So they came out every year at Christmas time. And as I grew older, people had an interest in them, so I sold them. And then as I grew even older, I started embellishing wedding invitations as a keepsake.
Yeah.
So if you were invited to a wedding and you wanted to give the bride and groom a unique gift, you would give me the wedding invitation, and I would try to embellish the invitation with the color of the bridal party.
Oh, that's so
in different types of flowers. I like to talk to the bride and groom to see what types of flowers they like or what they're carrying in their bouquets, and sort of aim it towards their personality.
Oh, that would be a beautiful
Yeah,
gift.
It's a nice keepsake.
Yeah.
And today, with the way brides and grooms set things up, they have the bride, what's it called? Save the date.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The invitation itself, and all kinds of things that go along with the wedding.
Yeah.
So sometimes there's all these different pieces, and the pieces end up being very large, but it's nice because you can lay them out
Yeah.
and mat them and then embellish each little piece.
Yeah. And then it becomes like a custom keepsake.
It
for
is.
you
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
like speaks to you. Which is
Yeah,
so
and
great.
I've done that for anniversary gifts and birth announcements, that kind of thing too.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Well, it reminds me of the traditions of, the keepsake wedding gift of a chest, or the keepsake decorated wedding gift of the wedding license and all that kind
Right.
of stuff. That goes back to folk traditions
Yes.
with every civilization.
Yes, and it's nice to have that in your home and hang it as a
Yeah.
reminder of your day of special vows.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lovely.
Well, this is beautiful, and I can't wait for people to actually come and see it in person, because it looks different from every angle, and other like things pop out at you as you look at it. So we're really excited to have this in our space, which it'll be with our Papers Work show, which is from June 2nd through August 7th. Thank you.